Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable, ongoing reality. Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Real Talks with the Coming. My name is Mark Angelo.
And I'm Linda Ariel. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We have a great guest. It's going to be an interesting show, passionate show, and we can't wait to introduce her to you.
And I also want to say, I hope you guys are taking care of your mental health. I know there's been a lot that those of us in the trans community have had to face. Those individuals that are the other, you know, because it's like the attack is on the othering, on the individuals that are not what this party wants to dominate and to live a fruitful life. I want to say I'm so sorry, and please take care of yourselves because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Anyway, today we have a special guest, as my lovely wife said, Sara White. Sara has worked with underserved populations for the last 15 years, including working in an anti-human trafficking with survivors over the previous 8 years. She has worked in multiple spaces, providing support in anti-human trafficking program development, education, and awareness and direct services. This includes starting her anti-human trafficking nonprofit in 2017.
Might I add that she looks absolutely fabulous in that picture?
Yes, she does.
While working in anti-human trafficking, she has provided direct support to survivors through trauma-informed services, street outreach, crisis response, hotline response, and advocacy. As a survivor of human trafficking, she is passionate about the needs of human trafficking and commercial exploitation survivors. She has a bachelor's degree in theology and biblical studies, so she knows a lot about the Bible, a minor in psychology, and a master's in crisis response and trauma counseling.
And now, let me share it. Get this right. Let me unmute her. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Hello. What a wonderful introduction.
Yes. I've interviewed you in the past before, and you're a great guest, and you have such an amazing, passionate story. Although we don't agree with the whole biblical stuff, and there's a lot of things that we question, and I think rightfully so. I mean, we're in a time right now where you kind of wonder, you know, what's going on, because religion has been used as a tool to literally hurt a lot of people, a lot of people.
Absolutely.
What do you have to say about that? How do you feel that, you know, a loving God that's supposed to love everyone is being used as a tool to separate and discriminate?
So I think very sadly enough that what is happening right now, and we're seeing our government, and, you know, I just noticed that there was he's trying to put together a group to come against religious bias and all of these things. And I have publicly said this on Facebook. I have publicly said this to many people that I've interacted with. That is not the true representation of a loving God. I think what is happening. So I grew up very evangelical. I grew up believing, indoctrinated, I will say, with the idea that if you didn't vote Republican, you were going to hell. I literally did what I was told to do within the evangelical church. I was made to believe that it was kind of us versus them in Americanized Christianity. And I have spent a lot of years dewiring myself from that. In my bachelor's degree of theology, I think that's really when I began to open up my mind and really pay attention to the fact that a lot of what I was taught was wrong. And that I don't necessarily know if I believe the Bible is infallible anymore. I think there's a whole lot of historical accuracy. I think from a bird's eye perspective, it all points to Christ. But I don't necessarily think that every single thing in there causes it to be infallible. I think that it is a guide. I think that it is taken so out of context a lot of the times, and a lot of times people are manipulating scripture to push what they believe. So when you say that you are questioning things, I have been on a journey, I guess, the last couple of years, and I've been questioning things. I think that many in the church, and I love my church that I go to, and I think the church as a whole does a lot of good things, but I think there are good churches out there. I think there are good pastors. I think there are good people in the church. But if we are not aligning as true Christ followers, I don't even like to call myself a Christian anymore, because so much pain has been caused under the guise of Christianity. That's a really, really broad term. KKK calls themselves Christians, the Christian Crusades, all of that. So it's like, do I really want to align with the fact that I want to call myself Christian, or do I want to call myself a Christ follower? Because if I'm saying I'm a Christ follower and I'm following the teachings of Jesus, my actions are going to be a lot different from what we're seeing in our public news and our presidency and the people that are supporting them. Christianity, or following God, was never about force. God gave us free will for a reason, to choose him if that's what we wanted to do. If we don't, or if somebody doesn't, he never told me to hate anybody because they don't choose the same thing that I choose. It's okay. I don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. And I'm also looking at a loving God. And so some of these things that you get screamed at that you're going to hell for, it's like, how is that possible? I wouldn't send my kids to hell for any reason in the world. And if I am taught in Christianity that God loves me more than I could ever love anybody with an agape love, and I couldn't send my kids to hell, then how is God sending me to hell? So do I believe in doing right? Do I believe in loving people? Do I believe in ethical and right decisions? Do I believe in treating people correctly? Absolutely. But do I believe in hating people because they don't choose God? No, not anymore.
And it makes you wonder what kind of God would actually send anyone to hell. What kind of God would put his child through what he put Jesus? I mean, there's a very deep story.
Well, there are so many directions we could go with that, because I grew up in a very evangelical, Pentecostal, no bones about it. If they were Catholic, they were going to hell. If they weren't filled with the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues, they were in hell. Baptists were considered in our circles to be people that weren't going to heaven because they didn't speak in tongues. They weren't filled with the Spirit. So, there's so many ways we could take this, because we have an absolute, we have this turnover in our government that has been driven by Billy Graham's son, by Franklin, who, he has Samaritan's Purse, and it's this great organization helping people all over the world. They fly and do relief projects. And, I remember growing up and having, they were doing a Christmas box and stuff, and the kids would fill the box and send it to a family in Haiti or something. And it was like this good, benevolent work. And it all got just turned into this. I don't even know if hadn't transitioned, how would I even be a Christian now, given what what Christianity's turned out to be, especially around the circles that I used to know it under. And it's just crazy, it's just crazy what things have taken place. I find it's like so hard. We went back to church last year, and it was like a MAGA nation reunion every Sunday, and they were just talking about how best to invest your money and stuff. It wasn't anything about helping people.
But if you dig deep into the Bible, and I'm not sure if you read the Bible from beginning to end, and that's one of the things that got me to like, I can't believe in this thing. I can't follow a God, the God of the Bible, the way all the murders and pillaging and taking spoils. And it's like, what does a God want with spoils and getting his part of it and hurting people and ordering them to kill everything, don't leave anything alive, and things of that nature, the way women were treated. I mean, there's just so much in that Bible that I can't believe.
Or just, the fact that the crime doesn't like fit what the sin is, it's like, so for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Okay. So we all fall short, we all sin, and we all deserve hell because of that sin in this meager little life that we lead, that it would literally garner an eternal punishment of never ending pain and suffering. It just, to my mind, after growing up in it, and then now just, deconstructing it over the years, it just doesn't really make any sense to me.
Have you read or really gotten into like the true Christ and what he stood for, how he was a rebel and that he actually came to free us from the religion, from a quote in the Bible, it says, your father is the devil. He told
John 8:44.
He told the Pharisees, and he was just like so anti the system, but he was bad for business. So they killed him and then they turned him into a religion. He had nothing to do with Christianity. I mean, have you read that? Have you
yes, he was, that? I say he's a feminist. He was a rebel. He walked this earth and he did everything, and he wasn't even about government. Like that's what kills me about, our government, how, we try to use the evangelicals in the Americanized Christianity is trying to use the government as a platform. We never saw Jesus do that. We never saw Jesus. That was in the old covenant. In the new covenant, where we see Christ come, Christ was here and he was making very, very, he was making waves. He was coming in and was like, no, we're not doing this anymore. No, we're not doing that anymore. No. And like I said, he broke laws, like when we see the woman with the issue of blood, she was not supposed to be touching anybody. She was on her period. And we know that from a cultural perspective, she was not even supposed to be outside of her home. And Jesus didn't care. He healed her anyway. And he was always saying, why do we have these laws in place? What are we doing here? And just like when he gave Peter the vision on the roof when he showed him all the food, because remember they had all the food laws, and he was like, let whoever eat what they want to eat. And then he sent them to the Gentiles, and we think about all that. And it was like, Jesus was ready for a whole different scenario. He came on the scene and was like, yeah, no, we're knocking all of this out the box. And the greatest of these is to love. That is the greatest commandment, is to love, and that's why I say, like, how can we justify that any of this is right? How can we justify that, you don't have the right to love who you want to love, and you don't have the right to walk around here and look the way you want to be and carry yourself as you want to carry. And I think that's what I've always loved about you all. even though it's been a crazy ride with both of you, I have always been here for it, because one thing I love about you, you all do it openly and you're not ashamed of it. I have seen you go to church, come out of church, hate church, not like church a little bit, like each other, not like each other. And it's like, you know what? At least they're real about their journey. And so I think that's something that I've always really respected about you all. And, I literally have always loved you all. Like I've always, Mark, I've always told you, whatever part of your journey, and we have to let people have their journeys. And I don't understand why we are so hell bent on using the Bible to dictate people's journeys. I mean, as long as you're not out here killing kids, hurting people, things like that, how dare us try to step in and say, this is not the right journey for you. You don't have the right to have this journey, because I'm getting to a place even more and more where I am outside of the box. I have no interest in being boxed in by these walls of what people are saying. I pour out myself to the community. I pour out myself to the people around me. I'm going to love who I want to love. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not doing anything. I'm not hurting anybody, and that goes for all my friends. Whatever your journey is, we have the right to have that journey. And I don't understand why there's so much hatred within our government, white nationalism, like all of the things. But it's really about control. It is all about control. We have turned the gospel into a tool of control instead of the good news of the gospel.
But it's always been that. It's always been. And that's why Jesus and other avatars, because I consider Jesus like a star walker, an avatar, a spirit that came, time traveler that came in to try to wake us up because we're dead asleep. And they kill him. And that's what they continue. Every time we try to wake up a little bit, let us come down and confuse their language. There's another reset and another reset. And they're constantly trying to keep us in this
They
trap.
know too much. They need to just go back to sleep now.
Yeah.
And
And
another 4,000 years, and then we'll let them build their civilization up again, and then we'll come in again and destroy them, and then make them start over again. And it's almost like this repeating cycle. And right now it seems like, we're at that age where, I don't know if you've noticed this, but kids of today do not think like you and I would have ever thought at their age.
No.
They are programmed absolutely differently, out of the box.
the nervous system is very different. It has, I don't know if it's all the technology, the frequency of the planet, because there's a change happening, and kids are very neurodivergent. And we look at that as something bad, but it's almost like that's a new hybrid. That's a new change, because something's happening. Something's happening on the planet. We see it in the weather. We see it in each other.
I mean, kids are a lot more intuitive than.
I have a 12-year-old granddaughter. I have a 12-year-old granddaughter, and I can tell you that these kids are definitely built different. And I love her dearly, but it's like little adults running around, and they have such great access to information. I think where we're failing is that we are not teaching them how to process the information. So they're struggling with processing the information because they have this overload and they have so much access to everything that's going on in this world, but they're not like us, Lynn and Mark. You know, we are adults. We have a lot of world experience. We have understanding. We have wisdom. We have all of those things. They don't. And they're getting the same amount of information that we are, but who's teaching them how to process this information? And so I think that's why we're seeing a lot of more emotional breakdown, and they're not receiving the love, and they're getting, and I'm not going to say all of them. I don't want to put all children in a box, but I think that a lot of parents and adults struggle with the fact that these kids are as intellectual as they are as intuitive as they are. They have more information. Yes, absolutely. And so, I was just talking to a friend about this, and we were talking about those power dynamics and how adults oftentimes want this power over the kid, and they don't understand we were really here to lead and guide them. And I'm really glad with my daughter, because she was a very young mom. So she's a very young millennial, and she's almost on the cusp of Gen Z, but she's very different in raising her kid. And so that makes me very happy, because even though I always don't agree with it, because sometimes that old school, rears up in me, and I can't help it, but then I have to check myself. But no, these kids are very, They are very intuitive and all this information. Then you hurt for them because they're seeing all of this. And what do they do with it?
And that's true. And I think because they're built differently, their nervous system is built differently. I think their spirits, their old souls are more advanced than we are. I think, if we go into the woo-woo side of things, they're like star kids, indigo kids, crystal kids. They come down to help heal the planet because this planet needs healing. There's been a lot of damage done. And so we're in a stage right now where things are changing very rapidly. And the kids, even though we think they can't process things, but they do in their own way because they think differently than we do.
Well, they're not built for this world. This world is this,
archaic.
The whole competitive thing, the stock market, the thirst for power,
the money.
We're going to have the Super Bowl in a few days. It's like this big sporting event that pits two different teams against each other and see who wins. It's like, this is what our society, our generational, our generation has been raised to,
to be then
crave.
Yeah.
It's almost like, more technology, more advancement, more, AI is going to be helping us to become a better society. And they don't realize that these devices, once they get into someone's brain and they don't need this anymore, it becomes a tool of control, which it already is, right? Yeah. We already have these things controlling our lives. How many times do you walk by and see people like they weren't in the 70s, right? Nobody was looking down at their phone in the 70s, right?
And it's changing people. We do delivery and we go to the store and we're always in the store shopping for people. And it's like, people don't look like people anymore.
They don't take care of themselves.
It's like, what's going on here?
They don't interact.
Yeah.
There's no social cohesion anymore. I mean, it just seems like we have lost it with this, which was supposed to be, this is going to be a great way for you to find your friends on Facebook from high school. Back in 2007, they would say that. And it's just become such a tool for division and a tool for political.
It's taken away our inner light, our inner ability. Back in the day, the indigenous people knew how to read the stars, knew when things were happening. They were like, how animals have this reflexive nature. They know when something bad's going to happen. They have a connection with nature. We used to do that.
Innate
we've lost
understanding.
Yeah, we've lost that. So these kids have that innate understanding. See, they process things very differently than we do because they come from a different time. They think of us as dinosaurs and they don't understand.
It's like, why do you think that's so important?
Yeah.
Why is it so important for you to think that?
I feel like you guys are in my head because that's what I go through with my granddaughter all the time. It's like, we talk about, I'll say, hey, she's 12, so I expect her to know some street names and stuff now. She's like, where's that? I'll say something like somewhere where we go all the time. I'm like, over there by Walmart or what? Oh, okay. I said, honey, you really should know these street names by now. Why do I need that? I have a GPS. And it's like, oh my God, they don't know cursive. So how are they going to read any historical?
Because it's not important to them. It's like, if you really think about it, these are things that we've been programmed to stay in line, right?
We need to be deprogrammed.
We need to be deprogrammed. We need to listen more to them because they are the ones, they're like the Christ consciousness. They're tapped into that.
Why do I want to have that kind of a career? Just because it's going to give me money.
Who
needs money? Why do we have a world where we even need money?
I know.
Why can't we just help people and be a part of each other's lives and help each other? I mean, this is how these kids are thinking. They're not thinking like, I got to get my college career going, the trust fund,
I know.
The whole, it's
No,
just
they're not thinking about any of that, not at all. I mean, my granddaughter, she is because we have deliberately worked towards breaking cycles. And I grew up in poverty and I struggled as a single mom until, I went back to school and I've changed my life so much. And so I began to break cycles at a later phase of my life. But that has opened the door for my daughter to break cycles. And it's like my granddaughter has no idea what it's like to lack. She has no idea what it's like to say, Mom, I need this. And Mom be like, I can't afford it because my daughter gets it for her, and it's like, I'm just like, you are so blessed. You have no idea, and it's like, and I'm always like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I don't know. I get really, terrified when I think about 20, 30, 40 years from now. It's like, what these kids are going to be, our age. What is that going to look like with all of this happening? Or, what is it going to be better because we will have, kind of gotten the boomers and everybody out the way, and now we have this younger generation coming up? Or are we going to so impact them with all of this negativity and everything? Is that going to spill over into these younger generations? Or are they going to completely be totally different? I don't know.
I think they're going to be different because I think that the things that we value have no value whatsoever. If you really think about how the natives, the indigenous people used to live, they were part of the land. They respected the land. They respected everything around them. We don't respect anything. It's competition is, big fish eat little fish. Look at where we're at today with the politics. Look at where we're at today with each other. We have never been so divisive in life as we are now, because it's all about that competition. It's all about othering.
Now we have a president who's like the quintessential, like, if you wanted to open a dictionary and look it up, of a narcissistic, megalomaniac, crazy person that wants to control people and wants to have their face in front of everything. I mean, it was a running joke. Growing up, you knew Trump had Trump Tower, he had Trump Casino, Trump Airlines.
But it's that mentality.
It's all about, that individual person. And I think that the younger generation, they see life as a organism, like as we're all part of this world in this massive planet, and we're here together. We're not divided. And I think that's the lesson that our generation needs to learn, is that we're not divided. We are pitted against each other, but the reality is we all have the same needs. We all want to be loved.
Yep.
We all want to do good things. And
the planet's speaking to us. All these natural disasters that have been taking place, the weather has gone bizarre. It's
I know.
Like, we need to start to listen. We need to start to respect the planet more, be less materialistic, be, as simple as we possibly can. Because you can't take it with you when you go. I'm like, why are people getting all these things and their closets are full of this, that? And it's like, comes a bad tornado, a bad fire, it's gone in a second.
As many have found.
I feel guilty with all of my clothes in my closet, Mark.
But, it's like, does that really make you happy?
It's a generational thing. My parents, they had a walk-in closet full of things. And, they had clothing that still had the labels, the tags on them still. So, it's like,
where does that get you, though? Does that really,
it's almost like a status symbol.
Yeah.
I think, the wanting to have what the Joneses had, that whole concept. It's
is it
so
okay that I just like to be fashionable? I love my clothes. I'm guilty as charged. I love my clothes. I love my shoes. And it's not even that I'm trying to I do a lot of public speaking. I work in I'm higher up management. So I do have to present myself in a certain way and everything. But, I do love to be fashionable, but I definitely don't need to shop as much as I do. So guilty as charged. Let me ask you this. When we think about this, the younger generation. You know, I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about how, and I think I said this earlier when I was talking to you all before the show started, we're thinking about a financial ecosystem. And, you know, I think when you said we're not really as divided, we're not divided, and we shouldn't be as divided as we should. Like worldwide in this earth, people are people. You're right. We all have to eat. We all have to, you know, take care of our bodies. We all need water. We all want to be loved. So we're really not that divided. We have different beliefs. We have different cultures. We have all these things, but those are all things that are beautiful and should be respected. But when I look at what Trump is doing, we're talking about like things like the tariffs, and we're talking about his executive order to stop the grants and, you know, all of these things, and he's trying to just stop stuff. You're playing a dangerous game, because whether we like it or not, it is a worldly ecosystem, a financial ecosystem, a relational ecosystem. And what I'm worried about is when we're watching him do these executive orders, and we're watching him sign these things into place and try to just, you know, make this us versus them, and China, you can't do this, and Canada, you can't do that. You're messing up the ecosystem, and that is dangerous. Whether there's flaws in it or not, it works. And those things can be addressed, but we have to be careful how we address that intricate system. There's better ways than just, I'm going to stop. It's almost like when you grew up and you were in science class, and it was like, if you take this one thing out of the earth, this is how it will affect it over time, and literally will demolish the ecosystem, the physical.
But that's what they want. That's what they want. They're going into all the programs, and like the programs that you're running, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, so that they could take that money to give cut breaks or tax breaks and give money to the elites. So see, this whole greed, this is where I'm stemming my whole, and I've been stemming my life on this whole materialistic greed doesn't work, because in order for there to be rich, there has to be poor. The rich can't be rich without making everybody else poor. And we're feeding into that system when we are purchasing and we're buying and we are contributing to it. And that's what, you know, people don't understand. It's like, if you want to drive that car, you know that there's a price to pay, and you know that there have been people hurt by the production of these cars and these factories that people barely get paid, so that the rich could have what they want, you know,
and you saw the disparity, I remember traveling last minute. I had a job going to Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and we were doing a Christian videotaping of some music artist or something at one of the convention centers there. And they took us around to the nice part of town. We went to the mall, and it was really like first world. It was nice. It was beautiful. And then it was like flying out, I finally saw how the rest of their city lived. Off the runway, you saw miles and miles and miles of like low income, you know, shanties and stuff. And it was like, gee, they didn't show us that part, you know.
That wasn't in the brochure, huh?
No, that wasn't in the brochure. Those weren't the people, the Christian people that went to that event. They didn't look like that, you know? So it's like, almost like the elites just want to take everything from the middle class and turn the middle class into the real poor with the rest.
Or get rid of us altogether, because AI is coming along, so they're not going to need humans. So what's taking place now, what people don't realize, if they allow this to take place, the world is going to be unrecognizable. Unrecognizable.
They look at human beings, these rich people. Mark worked with them back in the day when he was in Florida as a trainer, and they're
toys to them. We're just toys.
Don't look
disposable.
at you as human.
Yeah.
They look at you as like some lower version of humanity that can be disposed of.
Yeah.
You know?
Actually, that's what got me to really have this dislike, I don't want to use the word hate, of the materialistic world. I became a minimalist. And to this day, because my mom was the kind of like, always wanted to have the nice things and you better keep up with the Joneses. And it's like, it's just this avulsion that I have. And it's like, it's what's killing us. We could be so much better as a species.
And I wanted to add, Sarah, that I have struggled with materialism. So the whole concept of like
So I'm not alone.
clothing, you're not alone. I mean, the first time I met Mark, it was like, so where's the mall here? It's just like, there's no mall. It's like where was it? In the closest mall was Las Cruces, about 2.5 hours away in El Paso or something. And it's like, do you have a car? He's like, I don't have a car. I walk to the grocery store. He was like minimalizing his life way before I ever wanted to do anything of the sort.
Lynn, Lynn, if you need me to come sneak over there with you and go shopping, blink twice.
Yeah. Actually, we're getting rid of everything. So because we're getting
so
rid of
no, Mark, I
can't
come over and take your shopping.
No.
My shopping days are kind of over in that sense of like what I used to do. I was like over the top because I grew up going to South Coast Plaza in Orange County. I grew up with the mall. That was like, I lived in Minnesota. I went to the Mall of America and lived there for like the day, because it was huge. And
what happened in Los Angeles and what happened to a lot of people that had, it's like people better get used to that. Yeah, people better get used to that because that is going to be the norm. The earth conditions and the things that are going to take place. And I've been ready for this for the longest time. Since 2007 was my awakening. And I know that I've gone through a whole bunch of detrans and crazy things, but what we're going to be seeing now is people are going to be in for a rude awakening.
I don't know. I think that what we're going to be seeing is understanding what's really important.
Yeah.
I think really, it's really not about clothing or possessions or anything like that. It's just like when the rubber meets the road and you see what is really humanity and who we really are, we're going to see what's really important, and I think that's just something that it's a lesson that we all are going to learn. We're all going to learn it together. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
You're still wonderful and fabulous without all the clothes in your closet. You're still you. Those clothing don't make you. And that's the thing, is knowing who you are, connecting to your source, not what the Bible tells you, not what religion tells you. We are all a piece of that higher power. And that's what we're here to learn. The higher power lives through us, and every connection and everything that we do is part of that higher power. It's not in a book. It's not in a belief system. It's in each and every one of us. We don't even look at each other. We don't even, there's no true connection because we connect with material things. Let go of the material things and you will see a different person altogether.
I definitely think we are representatives of God, and our interactions. The most important thing is, how do I love you? How do I support you? How do I connect with you? How do I emotionally support you? Do I care about your mental health? Do I care about your emotions? Do I care about what went on today in your life? Do I care? That intimacy that we have lost within our society. There's a coldness, there's a desensitization, there is, we walk past things and it doesn't even bother us anymore when it should. And I think that's what's heartbreaking. So whether you have on a fabulous outfit or not a fabulous outfit, how are you treating other people? Because I've seen homeless people that are more loving than people that drive $100,000 cars, and it's like, one thing I will say is that when you don't have a lot, sometimes that makes you, and I tell people this all the time, when you're poor, when you've grown up in poverty and things like that, you know how to survive poor. You know how to survive without things. But you take the money and all the things away from the people who have never had to have that struggle, they would not have a clue as to what to do. And I thank God for my past experiences that I know if everything was taken away from me tomorrow, I would still survive because I know how to survive with nothing. I also know how to love, whether I have a closet full of clothes or whether I don't have a closet full of clothes. And I think the more I evolve and the more I really truly discover who God is in my life, and the more I understand people, and just the more, again, the more I'm evolving in this journey that I'm on, the more I'm loving people. Now, do some people get on my nerves? Absolutely. But, I mean, I have such a more open mind now. I have more, I'm even if I disagree, I can sit here and listen to somebody and have a conversation with them and be accepting and loving, even if I don't agree with what they're saying. And I don't have to argue, and I can still love them and give them that safe space to express themselves and be who they need to be. And I think we have gotten so far away from that. I don't even know, you think about historically all the hatred and the racism and the LGBTQIA hate and all that kind of stuff. Did we ever really have that? And it's like there was this country has had so much hatred from the very beginning. I mean, we built the country on the backs of Black individuals, yet here we are. It's like I don't know if we ever had truly godly love in this country. We had a lot of religion, but did we truly have godly love?
I don't believe we ever did.
I don't think so.
This country is founded on 3/5 of a person of a dark skin color is actually one white Caucasian. I mean, okay, so they consider 3/5 of a person, but the native was a savage, wasn't even considered a human being.
Yep.
It was they literally said, all men have the right, blah, 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 the whole thing. And then it says, but those savages in a few paragraphs down in the Declaration of Independence. And it's like, wait a second.
And this country was
never, ever been
on the back of slaves, on the back of immigrants that they're now throwing away. Without immigrants, we're vegan, so we rely on fruits and vegetables. And it's like, what's going to happen to the price of fruit if there even going to be fruits and vegetables? Because as they send everybody away, do you think the young generation now is going to go pick stuff, or anybody?
They wouldn't know how.
They wouldn't know how. They don't have that connection.
Hard, or their connection with the land itself. I mean, it's really sad because, everyone here in this country is an immigrant.
Yeah,
other than the natives that are literally indigenous to this land, everyone else is an immigrant. And even in the turn of the century, it was the Irish picking on the Poles and the Poles picking on the Greeks. And I mean, it's like, even if you were Caucasian looking, they were still, the Italians had their borough in a particular part of a city, and it's always been divided. It just they just can't seem to get along.
But now it's like, because of the internet and the social media platforms, I mean, things have gotten really bad.
It has. We have a lot more access. I mean, the access is a blessing and a curse. I mean, we have way more access to information, and we can research things and everything else. But at the same time, it's also a curse in a lot of ways, and it is disheartening. It also has desensitized us, because we see so much every day. We have normalized violence. We have normalized, all of these things. And that's really scary. So, I don't hate social media. I don't hate technology. It helps me do my job well. It has advanced a lot of things. But on the other end, it's like, It is separating families. It's losing the intimacy. It's losing those friendships. It's separating us. It's dividing us. So it's like a two-edged sword here, and it's like, what do we do? How do we counteract this? You have to be so intentional to navigate what bad consequences that technology and social media can do. You really have to be intentional.
And we've lost the connection to earth. We've lost the connection to each other. And, if we had a balance, but that's the thing, we don't. We don't know how. We're like children, unruly children that don't know how to balance playtime with rest time, what to eat, what not to eat, what to do. We're like unruly. And I don't know.
What did you like about growing up? Like I was a child of the 70s and 80s. So what did you like about the 70s or 80s that no longer exists?
So many things. We didn't have all the stressors of all the information. That kind of stuff was hidden from us. We didn't know. I mean, grandma would have the news on and we'd, see it as we were passing by, but it was only a 30-minute, 5 o'clock news came on. My grandma watched Tom Brokaw and, and 5:15 the weather came on and, and she would watch 60 Minutes. But I was I didn't pay attention to that. And that was okay. Like we just went on with our lives and we were playing outside all the time. I mean, we were all over the neighborhood. I lived in St. Louis. I grew up in St. Louis, and I mean, we would walk all over miles and miles with groups of friends, and we could be all over, and we'd go to downtown Kirkwood, and, we would have all these, you'd have a few dollars and we'd stop and get sodas and snacks, and nobody thought about human trafficking or, all the dangers of someone fighting or robbing or, all these things. And it's like, we were innocent. Like we were able to would keep. Now, did I grow up a little bit faster? Yes, because unfortunately my mother was in an abusive relationship. So there were factors, but I still was a kid in a lot of ways. And the expectations were a lot lower. School was just different. Do we have bullying? Yes, we did. I'm glad certain things have been addressed, but it's like, I don't know, Lynn, it was easier for kids. I mean, there was true enjoyment. There was a connection. You went out, nobody called on each other's phone and text or whatever. You just started knocking on everybody's door, 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday after cereal and Saturday morning cartoons. And it was like, can you come outside? Can so-and-so play today? Oh, okay. And that's what you did. And you got dirty and you drank out of hoses and you drove on your big wheels down the road.
Do you ever see kids running in the sprinklers anymore?
No, never.
You don't see them play.
You don't even see them outside.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we would shut down the literal street in our neighborhood.
Yes.
For a game, I mean, kids were.
And they didn't need all these toys. They would play with a ball or jacks or make their own games. It was a simple life, true love. Sometimes tough love because parents back then were pretty, with a belt and this, that, and the other. But, we felt valued. We felt loved. And I think a lot of people don't love themselves enough.
No.
And I want to segue to, I know that you do a lot of advocacy work and with this trafficking situation. Can you tell us how you got involved and a little bit of your story?
So I'm a survivor of trafficking, of child commercial sexual exploitation. I experienced it as a teenager. Obviously, I got out successfully. I didn't realize I was trafficked. That is not a word that we talked about. I'm 48 years old, and when I was in my teen years, between 14 and 16, that was not a word. Like we said things about young women then that were out doing that stuff. They were just being fast, or they were troubled children, or whatever the case. I mean, there was other words we used for young individuals that were doing that. I got involved in gangs. I was a chronic runaway. And it was not until I got older, I guess around 2016, I started hearing the word more, and I started watching documentaries on it because I was actually out doing street ministry, and I saw all the prostitutes that were out there, the women that were prostituting. And I began watching these documentaries that started coming up like on YouTube and things like that. And it was then that I realized that I was a trafficking survivor. It was like I was watching these stories and these were my stories. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it was called, you know? And so I think that really kind of started my healing journey, starting to understand when we started talking about trauma, when we started talking about what human trafficking, you know, recognizing and putting names and labels to this kind of stuff, and bringing all the research to the table and understanding what like trauma informed care was and all that stuff. So then it was like, I had such a passion for it. I was like, and I would be out in the streets and I would see these women. I'm like, I was saved from this because I have a reason to live and I have a purpose. And I had just determined that my purpose, and I always kind of knew growing up, like, because I came up in such a dysfunctional home and everything, like way deep down inside me, I always knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't quite know what that looked like. And, but then it was just like there was a spark inside of me. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is why God saved me. This is why I survived all of this, because I have a purpose and I dedicated my life to this. And it was, I love being out here. I'm one of those people that I've dedicated my life to it and I'll die for it, you know? And so I'm willing to go do the dangerous work. I'm willing to go into the streets and meet them where they are in the streets, still in life of trafficking, whether their pimps are standing there or not. You know, I'm very acquainted with the streets. I come from that culture, so it doesn't bother me to go into the streets. I understand, obviously, trauma-informed care. I got my education in all of this. I'm just passionate about helping these women. And the reality is I can't change the world and I can't eradicate human trafficking. So my motto is I can always impact somebody's world for the day. And even if I impact somebody's world by touching someone's life to help them get out of the life of trafficking, then I've done what I'm supposed to do. So just one person at a time, because if I try to make it too big, it becomes overwhelming. And I'm only one person, and I can't. I'm not a savior. I'm not coming along and pulling anybody out. I'm just coming alongside and letting people know that they're loved. And if they want help, I'm here and I will walk alongside of them in that journey if they need. So I've been doing a lot of work in that area for years, educating people about it, doing trainings, advocating. In my primary job, I am now developing anti-human trafficking programming. We're getting ready to open a drop-in center for women, adult women who have been trafficked or in the life of trafficking. And then we want to eventually open a safe house. I still have my own organization where I do street outreach and things like that.
Do you see it because, it's really not something that's spoken of openly. I mean, the government could acknowledge it, but do you think it really encapsulates so much of the social structure, like these corporations and, entire, governments and countries and,
even religions
and
has a lot of.
How deep does it go? Is it is it a worldwide underground network that we're talking about thousands and millions of people. We're not, when you hear about slavery, people think towards, the old days of the Civil War or something like that, but
it's still here.
The reality is that there are more enslaved people now in this world than there ever were back then. So what would you say to,
it's $1 billion industry. I mean, it's a lucrative industry. You follow the money. Do I think it goes very, very deep? Absolutely. Corporations? Absolutely. I mean, because when you think about labor trafficking, the amount of child labor factories and things like that in other countries that our consumerism is contributing to. When you think about sex trafficking, you think about the demands of sex, these pornography really fuels it, because you have to have a demand in order to create a supply. So the demand for it is so high. I mean, it's disgusting. We are such an over-sexualized society. Everything you look at, we over-sexualize our young girls. We over-sexualize, and I'm all about, free expression, things like that. But then we have these highly vulnerable populations. LGBTQIA plus is a vulnerable population. The Black women population is a vulnerable population. LGBTQIA plus is not that the fact that you are LGBTQIA plus is not the vulnerability. The vulnerability comes along when we think about, so like I live in the Bible Belt, and the homeless population, LGBTQIA plus homeless population, is astounding. Why? Oh, because our wonderful Christians, kick their kids out when they come out, or, it's so unaccepted. And how could you live this lifestyle instead of embracing them and loving them anyway? They have no support system. They end up getting out of here. Survival sex is a huge segue into commercial sexual exploitation and human trafficking. Black women, you think about the cycles of poverty and how over-sexualized. Let's look back historically. When we think about slavery days and things like that, the over-sexualization of Black women from white men, because a lot of the individuals that we see come down and patronize the women that are being sold are white men from rich communities, so it's like you think about everything contributes. And it's not just, it's old men on Social Security too. So we don't want to just say it's all rich white men, but it is. The porn industry, I absolutely hate, because that is not a regulated industry. So many young girls in that industry that are being trafficked, being manipulated into doing pornography. It fuels sexual addictions and this desire, because it begins to desensitize men, especially when you think about, let's put this in perspective, the white rich married man, he's watching porn and everything, and the pretty little wife won't do what he wants to do, so he goes down and he buys it, so it's like, because he's been watching porn for the last 6 months, and now he wants all of those things that are on the porn movie, and that is a very much a reality. We have to look at the demand as well. And I always say there's not enough programs that are addressing the buyers. There's not enough. We criminalize the women oftentimes when we see them out here, because we think they're just prostitutes. But the reality is that they're being commercially sexually exploited. There's exploitation happening, even if they're saying they're out willing. Nobody wakes up nobody's born and at 2 years old go, oh, I want to grow up and be a prostitute. There is things that led them to that place. A lot of times it's circumstances. It's a lot of times, I hear people say they have a choice. Well, do they? Because desperation, we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, hunger and poverty and needing love and all that kind of stuff. That is a strong, powerful driving force. Just those basic necessities, shelter and food and things like that. If you have children, you would be amazed at what women will do, or men are trafficked as well, to survive, so yeah, absolutely, Linda and Mark, it's a big, intricate, horrible situation.
And you notice that it has not been something that our fearless leader has touched upon, even though it's a massive issue. Instead, he picks on immigrants, he picks on LGBTQ, he picks on women. He doesn't address the problem. Why? Because the people he hangs around with, we know that Epstein had a massive, and although he doesn't claim to, but he did, it's crazy how the things that really matter are being ignored.
I grew up in Orange County, and I remember a stat that my Bible teacher in high school gave to kids out there, the seniors, and he's like, you realize that the majority of the prostitutes that are in Las Vegas at any given large weekend corporate event type thing, they're usually mothers from Orange County that are over there earning extra money so that they can feed their children.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait, whoa, mind blown. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you always think of the destitute, you know, being the ones that are going to be out there. But no, it's soccer moms that need extra cash or something, that know that there's a big corporate event going on in Las Vegas and they need girls, they need escorts or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
they go and they sell themselves for that. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and then there's the whole illegal trade, you know, with people from other countries that are being coyoted up here, and then they're stuck on a bus, or, you know, the pretty ones are picked and used and manipulated, and it's crazy.
So you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, it is, when we think about our president, I kind of chuckled the other day when I was looking at Facebook, and I was watching all these ICE raids, and I was watching how intentional they are about sending ICE in. And I mean, they're going in all these places. And I thought, man, if we put that much effort into missing children and missing people and trying to find human trafficking victims, man, we might get somewhere with this. You know, it's like you said, you know, we're focusing on the wrong things. We're taking this money that costs money, you know, and it's like, instead of getting rid of these illegal immigrants and people, you know, they try to use the human trafficking as a platform for their political views on the immigration stuff going on at the borders, you know, and it's like, that is ridiculous, you know, and in the way that we're handling the borders crisis is contributing to human trafficking. But it's not the fact that they're coming across the border, it's how we're handling. We're taking children, ripping them away from their parents and everything else. And so it's such a dark situation, and it's so massive. And like I said, I had to be really cautious in how I view it every day, because it is so massive that it would become overwhelming to me if I try to look at this from a really, really big perspective. I have to narrow it down and just work with the individuals that I'm able to impact and make a difference in their life. But when I'm doing training, of course, you know, when I'm educating the community and I'm talking to individuals, I of course address the fact that it is a humongous issue worldwide. Religious oppression plays into it. Consumerism plays into it. Dirty government plays into it. White rich people can play into it. And both white and like any, I mean, I don't want to just say white, but you know, it's the billionaires. This is a lucrative industry. You can sell a piece of or a drug and it gets smoked, like let's say a crack rock, it gets smoked up. You've made one profit. You can take a woman and sell her over and over and over again and make, I mean, the money that they make off of these women, and you do it every day and you sell them over and over again. So it's almost like drugs have become less, and it's like now they get all the girls hooked on drugs, and that's a tool to keep them manipulated, but it makes so much more money, and it's such an underreported crime. So we really don't have correct statistics to represent how bad it really is, because people aren't reporting it. People don't know what's happening. People don't know how to recognize it. And oftentimes I say it's dangerous because we live in a society where Hollywood sensation, like I don't watch any of those movies that they come out with, especially the Christian ones, where they over sensationalize human trafficking and what it looks like, because that's not really what it looks like. It's not white vans. It's not the Taken movie. It's not these dramatic, you know, kidnappings. It's right in your backyard. And we have to learn how to recognize it right here. It's happening all around. It can be a woman that you pass every day in the gas station. Like, we have to be able to recognize this properly.
The sad thing is, though, they meaning the new administration has no plan to take care of any of that. They haven't even, it's not even part of their ordeal.
Project 2025.
I mean, they're gutting USAID.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about that? And all the DEI we forget that the DEI is not just DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
It's also accessibility.
Yeah.
So you have these people that need help, and they're like being othered in a way, but it doesn't surprise me because the president now, he was very vocal about his opinion about people with special needs.
Yeah.
He would make fun of them. He would poke fun at people with special needs. And,
I know.
I mean, it's just really sad. But people don't understand how critical, programs like USAID is, how it is a integral part of, world humanitarian help, even in the human trafficking area,
Absolutely. I think reviewing it, looking at the budgets, those kinds of things, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, there should be oversight of all the programs. And you know what the reality is when you have federal spending in programs like that, do things start slipping through the cracks that maybe we could cut back on? Absolutely. I don't have a problem with an overhaul of what that budget looks like. He could have done that, but to completely cut it off, like, again, we go back to this financial ecosystem. That's dangerous because you're not just cutting off things that were unwise spending. You're cutting off things that were very much needed. And that's what's so scary about this. We cannot make this an all or nothing. Like, we have to have, like you said earlier, Mark, balance, and there's never any balance. And Trump is so emotional, and we know he is so radical as it is. And again, he runs off emotions, and Elon Musk knows that. And so it's easy to hype Trump up to get him to do these things because he's calculated. And so that's what's so scary for me when we think about cutting funds and we think about globally the human trafficking issue globally, and just in our own country, our own cities, we don't have enough resources to help individuals who are being trafficked. There's not enough shelters that are HT specific. There's not enough trauma-informed services. There's not enough wraparound services. I mean, let's think about all of those things. All this silly money that you're putting in to try to deport everybody and all the things and ICE and everything. Why can't you put some of that money into things that actually matter? Leave the people that are here alone. Let them be. Like, they're doing things that you aren't going to get out there and do, Elon Musk. You're not going to get out there and pick a fruit. I mean, let's be realistic, and it's like it gets very disheartening just to know that so many people are suffering. And the reality is a lot of these immigrants that are undocumented and everything are not here by choice.
Exactly.
Some of them have been
we have ruined their country, and that's what the U.S. does great. They go in, they take, and then they don't allow people that are in their country to make a living, so they have to come here to try to make a living. And there's just so much. The rabbit hole goes so deep, and people don't realize it. 800 bases throughout the world.
We could probably talk about this for 5 hours, and I know we're limited in time, but I've really enjoyed this conversation. And Mark, I know in the beginning you said that we may not agree on everything, and that's okay, because it takes diversity of opinions to come to the table. But it's really about, are we able to have these conversations in a loving, caring way? Are we able to hear each other? And I always hear you guys. I want you to know that, and I care about you too. I know we have never officially met in person, but I feel like I know you all, and it's like we've been friends on Facebook for years. I've been on your show before. I always tell you, if you all ever come to St. Louis, do not leave this city without letting me know so that I can take you to lunch. But I just, I appreciate you all so much. And we don't have to agree on everything to be friends. Just know that I support you. And I'm sorry that this is happening, especially an attack on individuals like you and yourselves and, transgender and your choices in life. And it's not fair. You should be able to live your life free and safely and love who you love and be who you want to be, because you both are beautiful people. So just know I support that. And I'm praying that God, we just all make it through these next 4 years. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you've put some things on your wall regarding teaching your grandkids not to be a doormat anymore, and because we do see that ever since Trump from 2016, there's been a lot of racism, a lot of anti everything, basically. Yep. And so can you elaborate a little bit on, that now is not the time anymore to tiptoe, to be nice, and allow people
exactly.
to be. You said something on your wall, and I think that was...
I shared a post about someone who was at a dinner with like family, and the grandma said something racist, and the mother was going to correct the young lady because the young lady said something to the grandma like in rebuttal or whatever, and it was pretty harsh. And then she was like, I decided not to because this is why we're here. And so I agreed with that post, and I was like, we are not being timid. We're being militant when it comes to protecting ourselves. I teach my daughter and my granddaughter, my son are very, very pro-Black. They're very proud of who they are. They understand that the society will always see them as African American, even though their mom is white. They will never see that white part. If they get pulled over, they can't say, well, my mom's half white, and they're going to care. They see the brown skin, period. And I've always taught my children that you will always have to work harder. You will always have to navigate these systems and everything, because unfortunately, although I am white, you will never be seen as that. They'll never see the white in you. They'll always recognize you as brown individuals in this country. And so, with my granddaughter, we think about those things like those microaggressions with white women coming up and, oh, your hair, can I touch it? And I have taught my granddaughter, you don't ever let someone touch your hair. They don't get to touch your hair because I said, people shouldn't be doing that. You're not in a zoo, I'm like, they don't get to come pet you, and it's like, I'm teaching my granddaughter, especially, speak up. People don't get to do this to you. These are the things that you're going to have to struggle with. And so there was a situation at school, and she noticed that she was getting punished, which is very common. Young Black children getting punished at a much higher rate versus a white child, which often leads to suspension and, kind of like the pipeline to prison concept. And so my granddaughter was like, this teacher is disciplining me. Like, I guess that's what she was thinking in her head. And she's not disciplining these other girls for the same exact thing. And she spoke up, and she was like, and she told, I guess she got sent to, because she has an IEP, and I think she got sent to maybe the office or something. She had to sit down with somebody out. It was last year, and I can't remember exactly all the details, but she went to, and she was like, no, wait a minute. No. These white girls did the exact same thing that I did on several occasions. And what I've noticed is that this teacher will discipline the Black girls in our class, but will say nothing to them. So they called her mom, and they're like, Miss Kiara, we need to talk to you. And so they actually had a conversation with my daughter, and they're like, if she's seeing this, then maybe we need to figure out, how do we address this? So it was like a whole meeting, and they wanted my daughter's input on this. And, but that's how change occurs. You have to speak up. And I have encouraged my granddaughter to always speak up and to recognize those subtle things as well. And you get to speak, just because it's subtle doesn't mean that you have to speak quietly about it, because at the end of the day, just call Granny. I will come running, because I will defend you. And if you get in trouble because you defended yourself based on the fact that it was wrong, it was either a microaggression, it was racism, it was discrimination, you have people that are going to stand behind you. You have a village. So it's going to be you and your village against the people. So always stand strong, 10 toes down for what you believe in, and you be proud and Black, and you defend yourself, or you don't ever have to just accept it.
And I think that's what a lot of minorities are taught, even in the Hispanic community. it's like they have to like keep their heads down and, understand their place. That's what, that's basically what's being told,
That's why we are what we are. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly why we are what we are. And
Yeah.
if we don't stand up now, because now is the time, we have to stick together.
Yes.
All minorities, all people of different colors, different, the LGBTQ, everyone has to, because they've been dividing us so they could conquer. It's time to unite. And if we don't unite now and demand a change, I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like you have to go. There's an event that I saw on your page. Would you like for me to share that and you talk about it before we go? And
yeah. Is that the
message
one where I think I'm on a
Yeah,
panel for human trafficking?
let me see here. Let me pull it up and share it.
I was just kind of keeping up with my phone. So I hope you guys don't feel my son had to go to the hospital earlier. He's really, really sick. And so I was just checking to see if he had called me or texted me.
So it's what is it? Emerging from the shadows of human trafficking.
Yes, I'm very, very excited about this event that Taryn Walton is hosting it. She's a good friend of mine. And it is going to be a panel. And Keaton Strong, whose picture is next to me, he was part of the anti-human trafficking task force in St. Louis Metropolitan Police years ago. And he was a strong force in prosecuting or arresting traffickers and prosecuting them. And then Antoinette, I've known her for some years. She is doing powerful work. Now, the last couple, I'm not sure who they are, but this is just kind of a panel. We're going to have a discussion, some training about what human trafficking is, answering questions, addressing concerns, and just helping people understand, putting it into some context is what I understand that the event is going to be.
Excellent. Any final words? Did you have any other questions for?
There's a lot of questions, but we've got a lot of time.
We could be here for 5 hours, y'all. We could totally do another show. It's completely fine if you ever want to. And you and you guys know how to get a hold of me. So we can always have further conversation. I love talking about these kinds of things. I think we align with more than what we disagree with. And I don't know if necessarily we completely disagree. We might just be on different paths of our journeys. And there may be some forms of disagreement, but again, I love you all, and I think that we can always have a safe space to talk about this. And I think I've always conveyed that to you all over the years, that I'm always a safe space, and you're always welcome to reach out.
Any final words regarding the situation that we're in and the budget cuts and things like that?
At this point, with all the uncertainty, I think I would just second what you said in the beginning was, I know that times are scary. I know we're going to see a lot of things that we're going to disagree with, that is going to be painful. We're being impacted by societal trauma. I encourage everybody to do everything you can to take care of yourself. It's okay to turn the news off for a couple days. It's okay to disconnect for a couple days. It's okay to talk and reach out to people. There's the suicide hotline. I don't know the number off the top of my head. If there's any thoughts of hurting yourself, just know that there are a lot of safe spaces. I know it doesn't seem like that right now, but there are a lot of safe spaces. And when we think about in regards to God and my belief system, I would like to tell everybody, I would proclaim it from the rooftops. This is not a true representation of God. God is the loving God, and I'm sorry that this is happening, and I'm so sorry that white nationalists are making it seem like this is who God is. It's just not. It's not. And hopefully at some point this will all be debunked. Maybe we can eradicate this religious ideology that is oppressing people, but the God that I serve loves everybody. And I just, yeah, this is a horrible representation.
Right. So thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your story and speaking your mind. And hope everything works well. I know that these cuts are scary, but like you said, hopefully, I think everything will balance itself out. And, the light always outshines the darkness, and the darkness can't withstand the light. So take care. Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for watching.
Yes.
We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too, and each other. Good night. Hey, that was
Thank
great.
you, y'all. Thank you. That was really, really good. And I hope I didn't bother you by looking at my phone again. My son had to go to the hospital.
No.
He's got the
No,
flu
no.
so bad. And so he's been calling me. My daughter took him to the emergency room earlier. We were worried about him getting dehydrated because he's ran a fever for days. So yeah, so I was kind of checking my phone to make sure I wasn't getting any messages. They had tested him. We were trying to wait on them for all his test results.
Wow. Yeah. Crazy, crazy world.
It is, guys, and I hope that you all are taking care of yourself. I know it's just
Yeah. Right now we're getting ready to sell the house.
okay.
With this whole thing that's happening, we decided we wanted to buy an RV, just travel
Okay.
and take.
So you're coming to St. Louis?
We might. That's what I said. We might say potentially. I mean, we plan to visit throughout the United States, and I want to take my talent of nutrition and fitness, and like help people, maybe personalize certain things, going to people's house. They could hire us for like a week, and we park in their house, and stuff like that. I'm still trying to figure it out as we go. Also,
he wants to get back to playing more, creating more.
Yeah. And my spirituality, I've always had gifts since I was a kid, and I want to tap into that, really, especially now. The time is, where religion is failing people completely. And like you said, the God that people serve is not the true God. The God of the Bible is not the real God. That's like an icon they placed there. The true God that I believe the avatar Jesus came to try to help people understand, that the God of the Bible was the devil. And not to say that there was Satan, but that was very like dark. And he said it in the Bible, and he was trying to bring forth a message which they just destroyed. They killed him and made him into a religion.
I don't think that, I remember in Bible college, there was like, I went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College. So Jimmy Swaggart said, many of you will get saved for the first time, in your life. Although you thought you were saved, many of you will find out that you weren't. And I think now at this time that there's so many people that don't know who the real Jesus is or what he actually was, because what has been painted, what has been, the story time, our version of Jesus, flannel graph Jesus and all that, that's not